Hi everyone, welcome back to Art Lessons with Rossi. And today we're going to be talking about the three-quarter portrait. And that is a portrait where you are not looking straight ahead, like in this example or in the middle example here, which we call kind of a one-point perspective view or a mugshot view. And instead, the face is turning away, like in some of these other examples, looking up, just slightly turned away from the viewer, more towards the viewer, looking down, etc. And in these other scenarios, other than the one where we're looking straight ahead, the side of the face that is away from the viewer is foreshortened. Therefore, we see less of one side of the face than the other. And usually we see half as much of the foreshortened side of the face as we do the part of the face facing us. And therefore we call it a three-quarter view because we basically see two fourths here and only 1/4 on the other side. Therefore, we're only seeing 3/4 of that view, or a three-quarter view. But to understand the three-quarter view better, we need to kind of go back and review this first view, this mugshot view. And for the video, I will have this breakout of the features and proportions and their ratios again for you in the description below. But first, we're going to talk about some basics. So when we're looking at the face, and the face is looking straight ahead, the middle of the face is vertical. So if you're just looking straight ahead, again, mugshot view, the middle of the face is going to be a true vertical line. And the eyebrows are going to be horizontal. So instead of the eye line, let's talk about the eyebrow line because it's actually a little bit easier. Sorry, my line's not directly in the middle of the face, which is okay. I think you guys understand. So this line is going to be a vertical line, and this is going to be a horizontal line, and they're going to be at a 90-degree angle from each other. So that line that's the middle of the face is, again, just going up and down vertically. What happens when you start to turn the face is that this line is going to be at an angle. So it's never going to, again, be a true vertical unless it's in this one-point perspective view. So what starts to happen is if we think about the middle of the face, now the nose sticks outside of that line. So when you think about your skull, you have your cranium, where your brain sits, you have your mandible, where your jawline is, and then all your features are on top of that skeletal structure. Your nose is cartilage, and it's sticking out outside of that skeleton. And so it's protruding out of the middle of your face. Here in the one-point perspective view, it straddles that that vertical line, and so we don't see or understand the dimension of it. But the second that our face turns, it's either going to be on the left or right of that line. It's never going to be straight in the middle of it again. So if I'm looking at this view of myself, and I'm lining up the middle of my lips with the middle of my eyes, and I can see that that middle of my face is now at a slight angle. And if I look at the eyebrows, they are also at an angle. So they are no longer horizontal, and the middle of my face is no longer vertical. Now, to each other, they should still be at a 90-degree angle. But to the viewer, that kind of cross that is creating the middle of the face is now turned. And we can see that in each of these examples, where you take the middle of the face. Again, I'm just going to line up my bottom of my lips, bottom of my chin, middle of my forehead, do the best I can here. You can see that nose is straddling that middle line, it's sticking outside of it. And then if you look at the eyebrows, they might also be getting a little bit foreshortened, so that angle's opening up a little bit more. depending on how far the face is looking away from the viewer. So let's just do it for all of them so that we can see that that middle of the face is going to be, again, at an angle. It is no longer just vertical or horizontal. So both of these are at an angle. And same thing with the one where I'm looking up. So why does it matter? Well, first, that line that shows the middle of our face is going to help us understand the symmetry of our face. And our face is still going to stay basically symmetric. Of course, there are little differences between different people. When we drew this version of our face in a previous video, we started with a vertical line, and then we took that vertical line and we divided it into 3 equal parts, from the top of the forehead to the eyebrow line, from the eyebrow line to the bottom of the nose, from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. So this idea of thirds is still going to apply. Now, and that's how we're going to build out the proportions of our face. The other thing that we noticed when we did this one-point perspective view was that the width or the height from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin was the same as half of the face. So this dimension and this dimension were equal to 1. So this dimension and the one on the right were also equal to 1. So these were all the same dimensions. And we really started that portrait that we did before by creating 6 equal squares, the top of it representing top of the forehead where the hairline starts to the top of the eyebrow line to the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. The other thing that we did in that example is we took half of this dimension, put it on the top of the head so that we could get the shape of our brain, that cranium, and making sure that we had a nice big circle representing the top of our head. So as we're looking at the this kind of one-point perspective portrait straight ahead, it's easy for us to see the front plane of the face. And again, we're also looking at the cranium, which sits outside of that first plane of our face. But what this view doesn't show us is that the face actually is like a box. And the front plane of the face is 1 of 6. So we have the front plane of the face, we have 2 sides to our face, the back of our head, the top of our head, and the bottom of our head. And what our face actually looks like is a box. So if we were to take this example, this first example, and I were to mimic the kind of angles that we're getting from the top of that face, what we would understand is that the face itself functions like a box, going back into perspective, into basically 2-point perspective. And the side of the cheek is where the side of the box of our face happens to correspond to. And in this example, I'm actually wearing glasses, and if you look closely, the edge of my glasses are actually the edges that represent that front plane. And if you look at the arm of my glasses going back, you start to see that there is a corner to my face, and one part is going in this direction, going towards one perspective point, and this side is going toward another direction, going toward another perspective point. Now, we're not going to draw out those perspective points because we're actually so close to the subject here that it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to extend these out to the vanishing point. But instead, we need to understand that the face functions like a box. So let's go a little bit further with that idea. So as the face is functioning like a box, and there are things that we know about boxes. The first is that their sides are parallel to each other. So any of your verticals are going to be vertical, but if they're at a slight angle, this line will be parallel to this line, will be parallel to this line. And then the other thing that happens is all the planes of the box are also going to be parallel to each other. So I have this eye line here. The top of the forehead is going to be parallel to the eye line. The bottom of the chin is going to be parallel to that eye line. And that angle is going to stay the same within each of them. The other thing we know about a box is the angle is not only the same at the top, bottom, it's also the same on the back or in that interior side that we don't see on the box. And the same would apply towards the other direction that we see a two-point perspective box. So this angle, and this angle are all parallel to one another, like this, but they are also parallel to that one back there. Now, of course, with linear perspective, there's a little bit of a skewing to that, where these lines are actually, slowly diminishing towards a point in space and therefore getting closer and closer to one another. But to be correct, or to visually understand this correctly, or as you look at a physical box, you understand that those lines are actually parallel to each other, and that we can think about them that way in order to make sure that our drawing is correct. Basically, they will never be, they might be getting closer to each other this way towards that vanishing point, but this line will never be going away. It will never start going upward. And it is a way for us to check our work. Anyway, let's get back to the portrait. So when I think about the middle of my face, and I'm thinking about that angle, which I can sight and look at, the other thing that I know is that the edge of my face, which is going to be corresponding with our cheekbone, is going to be parallel to that line. And if I look at the exterior of my face here, this angle that is equal to my cheekbone on the other side is also going to be parallel to this middle angle and be at the same angle that line in the middle of my face. Same thing with my eyebrows. So this eyebrow line and the top of the forehead, they're going to be going at the same angle. Same with the angle on the bottom of the face, and they're also going to be parallel to the bottom of the nose, middle of the lips, top of the lip, bottom of the lip, labrae, as well as the bottom of my eyes, the top of my eyes, and my pupil line. So all those are going to be parallel to each other. And that is the same as what we notice when we're looking straight ahead in the portrait, but now it's at an angle. In order to understand the other side of the box of our face, we need to look for this angle. So if you go from the top of the eyebrow line and you take a line to the top of the ear, you're going to understand the angle that second plane of the box that's in two-point perspective that's representing the side of your face is going. And you can think that these are all going to be parallel to each other as well. And the edge of your face is going to be parallel to that middle of the face, so that parallel line will also repeat. So all of a sudden, it kind of makes sense that in that view, I am looking just a little bit up, and you can see the bottom plane of my chin. While in this example, you'll see that you can kind of see more of the top of my forehead. In order to understand where the ear is sitting, that corresponds with our nose line. So if we were to extend this angle all the way to that edge of the box, and then we were to repeat this angle, you will see that we can understand where the ear is sitting within that space. So let's go back to the foreshortened side of this face, this idea that this is a three-quarter portrait. If we measure if we understand that the measurement between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin, the bottom of the nose and the eyebrow line on top of the forehead are all equal to one another. And if we turn that measurement, they are also equal to the side of the face, like we started here with 6 boxes. We can always get that corner of the face that is facing us, because even at a 3/4 view, this distance will basically stay the same. Very small foreshortening on the side that's facing us. But if we take that same measurement and compare it to how much of the face we see on the other side, I'm just going to mark that for us. So this measurement here, if measured from the middle of the line to the edge of the face, sticks all the way out here. So if we were to create an equal distant box, you'll see that basically as the face turns away, we are missing 1/2 of that measurement. And therefore, if we were to make an imaginary line going down this part of the face, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and we are only seeing 3, therefore we have a 3/4 portrait. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult to understand, so I'm taking my time to explain that. And you can see that we only see about half of the face the same width on the side that is foreshortened or moving away from us. That's something that's really important for us to note and to keep in mind as we are thinking and creating the facial structure of ourselves or of any character or anything else that we might be drawing. So in this, I'm going to use another example since we marked this one up pretty well, and let's talk about how the other features, the eyes, the nose, the width of the mouth, all function within this space. So if we go back to our 1-point perspective portrait, the one where we're looking straight ahead, what we saw is that if we take the measurement from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin and we broke that in half, we would find the bottom of the lips. If we took the measurement from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the lips and we broke that in half, we would find the top of the lips. If we took the measurement in between that and broke it into thirds, we would find the middle of the mouth. If we took the measurement from the bottom of the lips to the bottom of the chin and broke that into thirds, we would find the labrae. Nicely enough, all those will still stay the same as we go to the 3/4 view. But I'm just going to go a little bit further, doing this pretty quickly. There's an entire video on just this if you want to see it. But you'll see why it's important for us to think about how those same measurements are going to apply to a 3/4 portrait. If we take the measurement from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the to the top of the forehead, and we take that and we break that up into thirds, so this would be thirds, and we take the top third, we would find the space from the eyebrow line to the bottom of the eyes. If we then break that up into thirds again, we would find the pupil line, and we would find the top of the eye. So that's the main measurements for our face. Now, going in the other direction, if we take half of the face and break it up in half, we would find the place where the eye sits as it's looking straight ahead. And then if we break that up into fourths, we would find the edges of the eye. And let's do the same thing on the other side. Pupil, or middle of the eye, the left and right part of the eye by breaking that up into fourths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 equal sections all the way across the face. And if we were to take the middle of the eye and come straight down, we would find the edges of the mouth. And then if we were to take the interior of the eye down, we'll find the edges of the nose. So that's important for us to think about in terms of what happens when you go to a 3/4 view. I'm just going to add some ears in there just so even this little version can hear. So when we go to a 3/4 view, we will again keep all these lines parallel, and we can break this vertical line up into thirds. So top of the forehead to the eyebrow line to the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. Those should all be equal distance thirds. If we take from the bottom of the chin to the nose, it's kind of the easiest one to see. And we take that measurement, we'll find the edge of the cheek. You can see that. And then we can decide or figure out from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin, how much of that space do we see on the other side? And for me, I see about half. So again, we're dealing with that 3/4 view, just to show you guys that again. And I'm going to repeat this line, top of the forehead, bottom of the chin. Okay, great. We understand that, but how do we get the rest of the features? And I feel like you guys understand if you take the eyebrow line to the ear, you can find the other part, the other perspective of that side of the box. But here, these measurements we just talked about will apply when we're dealing with the horizontal part of the face. So if we break this in half, we'll find the bottom of the lips. If we break it in half again, we'll find the top of the lips. Break that measurement into thirds, we'll find the middle of the mouth. Break this into thirds, we'll find the labrae. And from the bottom of the nose to the top of the forehead, if we break this up into thirds, we'll find the bottom of the eyes. They're going to be at the same angle as the eyebrow line. Then if we break this up into thirds again, we'll find the pupil line, and we'll find the top of the eye. Now where it gets tricky is this foreshortened eye, and basically figuring out where the eyes are going to sit within that space. Nicely enough, the process is still the same, even though the distances between things are going to be different. So if I take half of the face that's the part that's facing me, and I break that in half, I'm going to find the middle of the eye. It will no longer correspond with the pupil because the eye is turned toward the viewer. If I break this in half, I'll find the edge of the eye. If I break that in half again, I'll find the other part, edge of the eye, which is great because if I bring down this interior side of the eye, I'll find the edge of the nose, and if I bring down the middle of the eye, I will still find the edge of the mouth. But what happens on the other side? Well, technically same thing. You're just going to take this half of the face and you're going to break that in half and then into fourths. And even though you're seeing so much less of the eye than you do on the other side, everything else is still going to be the same. If I take the middle of the eye down, I'll still find the edge of the mouth. And technically, if I bring down the interior part of the eye, I'll find the edge of the nose. But because the nose actually sticks out, that nostril is being covered by the nose itself. Therefore, it's not as useful of a measurement for us. The other thing to really think about when we're creating three-quarter portraits is we are going to see, again, about half as much of this side of the face as we do this front plane. But because we're looking at a corner and we're seeing two sides of the face, the cheek is always going to be just this huge space. It just ends up being a really big part of our features. And that's just something to note and think about, and also allow that measurement to stay as big as it is. It's important for us to have a cheek, so make sure that you're including that. So why does all this matter? It matters when you're either drawing your own self as in a self-portrait or as you're making a character. So let's say that I'm making a character. Let's use this one for example, a character that's gazing upward. So I would start by creating the angle of the face and thinking about that cross. Then I would think about that I want the top of the forehead, top of the eyebrow line, and breaking up this form into thirds. Again, the nose line, the bottom of the chin would be equal to or parallel to each other. Then I would take one of those measurements to get the side of the cheek, understand that front plane. Then I would take that same measurement, the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin, and I would break it in half in order to get the foreshortened side. So I have that 3/4 view. And it depends on how much you see of this part of the face. Usually it's not. Usually it's also about a half or a 3/4. So if I take that measurement again and I look at how much of the rest of the face I see, or in this case, same thing, grab that measurement and see how much of the rest of the face I see here, it can be as little as half or as much as one, depending on how far away or how turned the face is away or toward the viewer. So let's do something, let's split the difference and do something in between. I'm going to say that I see about a little bit less than one for this side of the face. And I'm going to really, because they're looking up, I'm going to really angle that ear so that this angle is pretty extreme. And I know that my ear is going to sit in this space. The other thing I know when I'm looking at this and when I'm creating this kind of box for myself for the face is that this is just the face. There's also the cranium itself. And so the top of the head, again, it's usually about 1/2 of one of these thirds that we could go up. But that top of the head is going to go up and over, and it's actually going to line up and tuck behind the ear. So usually our skull kind of ends right below our ear, and then our neck kind of starts in there too. So again, as I'm developing a character, I'm going to make sure they have a face that's shaped like a box. I'm going to make sure that they have a brain. And then I'm going to go into the features. So I'm going to make sure that their mouth, bottom of their mouth sits at the halfway point. If I break that up in half, I'll have the top of the lips, third, middle of the lips, labrae. Then I'm going to break up this section into thirds again, get the bottom of the eye, break that up into thirds, find the pupil line, top of the eye. And then on the other, and continuing the other way, I will take this measurement, find the halfway point, break that up into fourths, take the other side, which is smaller, find the halfway point, break that up into fourths in order to get the eyes themselves. And then the nose is going to stick out somewhere in there. After I have that, I'm going to start to put in features. Now, something else to think about, and we haven't totally gone over, is that this measurement for the eye is great, but the eyeball itself is a big round thing that sits inside of the skull. So it's a big circle that sits inside of the skull. And then our eyelids go over that form. That's just something to think about, that, as we're, as we have our skeleton or our skull inside of, underneath our face, and we have the cranium, which is going to, have cheekbones, it's going to end, it's going to hold our skull in here. And then we have our mandible, which is going to come down from basically right behind our ear and come down to hold the bottom of our teeth and our jaw. Our eyes sit inside of sockets, and our eye is a big circle. And then the colored part of our eye sits as a circle that's perfect on top of that, and our pupil sits right in the middle of that. And then over that space, our eyelids kind of interrupt or go over that form and have all kinds of characteristics, including tear ducts, the interior of our eye, etc. And then our eye fold kind of goes inward where that circle ends, and then the upper part of our eyelids underneath our eyebrows sit on top of that. And again, our nose sticks out here, protrudes. Our lips go over these teeth. So going back to this to the features of this, a couple things. As we start to create the 3/4 version of our face, our forehead is going to come down. It will start to come out just a little bit because there's a bony part right here above our eye socket. Then it's going to go in where, so it's our forehead's going to come down. It's going to go out where that socket is bony, and then it's going to go in where our eye is, because we have a little bit of indentation around that space, and then our cheekbones are going to come back out. Then it's going to follow the shape of the upper lip or the side of our face that's covering this part of our space between the cranium and the mandible. And then our cheeks usually come out just a little bit around our lips because there's a lot of flesh there, and then come down and start to show our chin. And so as I start to draw my character or myself, I'm going to follow that forehead line, bump out for the eye, go in for the eye socket, come back out for the cheekbone, make kind of a wavy part around the mouth, and then start to come in and connect to my chin. My nose is going to straddle and usually come over, cover a part of my eye, and then curve up and down. The nostril is usually going to even go over the center line, as you guys can see. So the nose is going to come out, cover a part of that foreshortened eye. And sometimes we see a little bit of that other side of the nostril, sometimes we don't, depending on the view. For example, in this one where I'm looking downward, you don't see it. But the nostril is usually going to straddle that middle line. And from the nose, usually we'll see the eyebrow curving upward. The space between the side of the nose and the eye, you guys can see, is quite big, and the eyebrow usually corresponds like right outside of that line. So the eyebrow is going to start around here and come up and over. The eye itself is going to sit right inside of this rectangle. It's not going to be any bigger than that. A lot of times people want to make those eyes really big. Now, if you're into anime, like maybe that's going to be a look that works for you, but it's good to over-exaggerate the eye only like 10%. You don't necessarily want to over-exaggerate the eye too much, or you're going to end up with a Powerpuff Girl. Now the eyes are, in this scenario, I pointed them at me. If you guys remember what I was just saying, there's a big circle behind all of this, and then the eye lid is going over that eye. So make sure you pay attention, and as you're drawing yourself or somebody else, drawing in the tear duct, drawing in all the features of the face. I'm drawing pretty small here so you can't quite see it. If I bring the middle of the eye down, I'm going to get the edges of the mouth. So the mouth's going to go wide on the part that's facing the viewer, short on the side that's foreshortened. Here's my lips, Labre is super important to understand the edges of that lip and to understand the chin. And then on the other side, the chin connects right to the ear. So this chin is going to come down from the ear and come over. Now, if you're looking at a masculine character, usually that chin is going to be stronger. If you're looking at a woman like myself, that chin's usually going to be weaker. Same thing with depending on where the cheekbones are. So, I don't know. I can't decide whether this is a masculine or feminine character here. Maybe it'll be a little bit more masculine. So pop that chin out just, or the edge of that mandible out just a little bit. And then it's going to, the bottom of the chin here is going to continue, because see how we're seeing this bottom plane. So it's going to continue right from that angle and come down and start to connect to the neck. And then so you see that chin coming down here. And then from the back of the ear, we're going to see the neck. So remember that you need that ear, and that the back of your skull is going to continue outside of that form too. So the cheekbone is in this spot. And then the shoulder is going to start really soon after you create that neck. You have your collarbone here. And it's important to make sure that those shoulders are far enough out. So we are 3 heads wide. So in none of these pictures can you see my shoulders, but my shoulders go to here. And I can basically put 3 heads on top of the width of my shoulders. So something that students have a tendency to do is to like give their forms like tiny little shoulders, like basically creating little bobbleheads. So like the shoulders get really weakened. Make sure that they stick out there. They like don't make yourself into a bobblehead. Don't make the character into a bobblehead. And then last, to just talk about hair. The hairline is going to start right at that upper part of the face. And I guess this was a masculine character. Let's give him some, I don't know, some fun hair. It can also swoop downward. And usually you want to make big chunks. So you don't want to draw hair in singular lines. I feel like I was doing that a little bit. Let me see if I can make some better decisions. And then the hair is going to go around the forehead, and then go down to the ear. You know, maybe this guy has mud chops and some sideburns here. Like, kind of fun. Elvis-like haircut. Just making some hatching and cross-hatching to create the side of his hair. I didn't really make a decision of what his hair would look like. I feel like I could have done that a little bit better. Since he has those mud chops, I kind of want to give him a mustache. Maybe he has low goatee. Maybe his eyebrows need to get a little fuller. So again, 3/4 view, that side view, just really think about how if you keep all these things aligned the same, so the eyebrow line, the eye line, the nose line, the mouth line, the chin line, they're all going to be at the same angle, and that if you find the edge of the face, then you break that up into half of it into fourths, the other half into fourths, you'll be able to find the placement of those eyes. Interior of the eye corresponds with the nose, middle of the eye corresponds with the mouth. So face is like a box. 3/4 view, because we're losing 1/4 of the face. Make sure that you are watching for and creating these lines, and you really start with them. The way I do it is I hold my pencil right at the edge of my nose and I look for that line. All right, I hope this was helpful, and If you need those dimensions, which again I have broken out on a sheet, they're going to be in the description. Thank you.